Hello everyone, Karen here to talk to you today a little bit more in depth on how dogs learn. Now, we've briefly touched on operant conditioning and positive reinforcement and all of that fun stuff, but I want to get into the ABCs of dog training. So the first thing to do is explain what the ABCs are. The ABCs are antecedents, behaviors, and consequences. Don't leave me yet. I'm sure you're like, oh gosh, I don't want to get into this. I don't really care. But I promise it's really important, and this is how your dog is going to learn better and how you're going to do better in your dog training. And I promise it's not as hard as it sounds. So this is the order of how your dog learns. So I want to go over some examples. The antecedent is what comes before any behavior your dog offers. Then the behavior is what the dog does. And the consequence for that behavior determines if the behavior happens again, if it doesn't happen again, or if they don't learn anything. So let's jump right in. My first example for you is for all you new puppy parents out there, or anybody for that matter. This doesn't just go for puppies. But the antecedent in this scenario is that your puppy is left alone in a room with shoes. Okay, seems not that big of a deal, but the behavior your puppy chooses to do is to chew on those shoes. And then the consequence of that behavior is your puppy learning that chewing on shoes is so much fun. I want to do it again. So you're setting your dog up for failure if you're leaving a young puppy left unattended without anybody watching over him with things that could go wrong. So for your puppy to not learn to chew on shoes, just don't leave them alone. Or put your shoes away. Put anything you don't want the puppy to get into out of reach. So again, puppy was left alone, puppy chewed on shoes, puppy learned that chewing on shoes is so much fun. That's how the ABCs work. That's how our dogs learn without us even doing anything. We're just leaving them alone. Now, next example is one I'm sure you're familiar with. So the antecedent here is you ask your dog to sit. The behavior is your dog puts their bum on the ground and then they get a treat. So the consequences of that is your dog learns to sit on cue. Your dog learns that when a human says sit to them, if they put their bum on the ground, they get something good. So it's really easy, the ABCs. It's not that tricky, but it does get a little tricky. So just like our dogs can learn positive experiences and positive consequences, they can learn negative consequences as well. And sometimes what we are trying to teach our dog is not the lesson that they are learning. So this next example may seem a bit extreme, and hopefully none of you are doing this, but I have to use it to illustrate how learning can go in many different directions. So the next example is your antecedent is your dog poops. They all do it. The behavior in this situation though is that your dog eats the poop. And then we as humans, we think that's so gross. And some people out there, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying some people still believe that hitting a dog is the way to teach them. So what happens is, your antecedent, your dog eats their poop. Or excuse me, your dog goes to the bathroom. The behavior is your dog chooses to eat the poop, because dogs can be pretty gross. But then a human comes over and whacks them on the nose. And we think we're teaching them, don't do that, that's gross. However, the consequence really is that dogs learn human hands hurt And I don't want humans to come over to me because they might hurt me. Now, even if you're not hitting your dog at all, or even if in this situation this person isn't hitting their dog for any other bad behavior, your dog is learning sometimes humans are nice, sometimes they hurt me. So then they kind of start to live in this anxious state of which human am I going to get today? So if you're hitting your dog for bad behavior, they're probably not even learning that what you think is bad is what they're being punished for. They just know a human came over and hit me, and that wasn't very fun. So a further consequence of this is that your dog continues to eat the poop. And then what can even further happen is your dog sneaks off, poops really quick, eats their poop, and then comes running back. So be aware that our dogs can learn negative things too, and sometimes they can not learn anything that we're trying to teach them. So we need to teach them in positive ways, and we also need to teach them what we expect of them. We can't just expect them to stop bad behavior if we're not replacing it with a better option. So our last example is one I'm sure you guys have all experienced at one point or another. The antecedent in this example is that your mailman comes to drop off your mail. Then the behavior your dog offers is your dog barks at the mailman. Well, the consequence here though is your mailman was gonna leave anyway, but your dog thinks that they caused the mailman to leave. Your dog thinks their barking made that scary man who was on their property go away. So it worked. So then the next time your mailman comes, your dog barks at them again, and guess what? The mailman leaves. He was gonna do it anyway, but our dogs don't know that. So here, instead of hitting your dog or dragging them away from the window or yelling at them, a better option is when that mailman arrives, teach your dog a behavior that isn't barking at the window. Teach them to either come sit in front of you or go lay down on a bed, or you can even just teach them to just look out the window quietly. But you have to set your dog up for success. In this situation, we're setting them up for failure because we're not teaching them what we want them to do instead. So they're just doing what they naturally do, which is bark at the scary man that suddenly appeared in their yard. So this is the very abbreviated version of the ABCs of dog training. There are tons of books and websites dedicated to this, but I, of course, am always here if you have any questions, and I would love to dig deeper into this, but this is just the start to get you guys thinking about how we can set our dogs up for success, how we can give those antecedents or put those antecedents in the right order to get the right behavior and the right consequences for our dogs. All right, guys, as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. In the meantime, though, go train your dogs and don't forget to tell them I say hi.